What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comically Boston. Today's episode 91, and we are going to be talking about Ahsoka, episode 3, Time to Fly. It's about a 30-minute episode. It was a honestly really good one, building from the last two episodes, the premiere from last week. I highly recommend this show, and also if you were a fan of Rebels and Clone Wars and all other Star Wars stuff, this show is like really for you, you know, like if you have all the knowledge from all the previous stuff, this show is just enhancing everything. But at the same time, you know, if you don't have the knowledge from those shows, you can still kind of watch this show and understand, because they are explaining some things and, you know, getting around to it. You know, you might not know who Ahsoka is if you haven't watched Clone Wars and Rebels, but you can figure it out pretty quick, especially if you watch Mandalorian or Boba Fett. But she is badass, and Rosario Dawson's doing a great freaking job. But before we get into Ahsoka, I just want to talk about a couple of things that released the last couple of days. A new poster for Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese's new film that will be coming out in October. I believe that's also by Apple TV. Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone. So that, to me, looks really good. Whoever edited the trailer for that movie deserves a raise. That was one of the best trailers for a movie that doesn't really necessarily pique my interest. I have no idea what it's about. Like, what is the Flower Moon? I have no idea. But the trailer was really good, so now I'm like, well, I guess I gotta see it. But also, Raising Kanan, Power Book 3 will be, season premiere will come back December 1st. So that's exciting stuff. I know Power Book 4, Force, Tommy's show, is coming back in September, so that should lead one into the other. It might even overlap a little bit, depending on how the week-to-week releases go. But I'm excited for both of those. I love the Power universe, so we'll be talking about that. Maybe not cover it the same way we're covering Marvel and Star Wars stuff, but we'll talk about it every now and again. And also, Empire released an image from the Marvels coming up here in November, and I honestly like the costume. Like, the costume designs itself look great. Iman Vellani in her Miss Marvel suit looks pretty good. And Brie Larson here in her Captain Marvel suit. The suit itself looks good, but that dark maroon I'm not really buying. I would rather have like the red, kind of like Iman has. But I guess they couldn't do bright red and bright red next to each other. They just look too similar, I guess. Maybe that's what they were going for. But I don't know. Something about that dark maroon I don't really like. So this is a little too dark, a little too muted. This outfit, to me, feels like it needs a little pop of color. But regardless, the costumes itself still look pretty good. Also, there was a trailer released for one of my most anticipated movies of the year, especially now that Dune Part 2 is next year. The Killer by David Fincher. If you guys don't know who David Fincher is, you might know him from movies like Seven, Zodiac, Fight Club, you know. But in this one, he has Michael Fassbender playing an assassin. So he is the killer, and, you know, a couple of images from that trailer. He's like following a guy in this hat. He's looking out the window here. He's, you know, kind of very menacing, you know. That's why I loved him so much as Magneto. You know, he's flipping the coin, and he puts the fucking coin through Kevin Bacon's head, you know, like, he's just a great, I like him. He's a good actor. So that will be in theaters in October, but on Netflix November 10th. So maybe I'll go see it in theaters, but if not, I'll be waiting for it on Netflix the same day that the Marvels movie comes out. So that's exciting stuff. I'm excited for that one. But now, I have one more thing to talk about. Oppenheimer joins the top 5 highest grossing R-rated movies. Number 1 is Joker, made $1.8 billion. I didn't realize it made that goddamn much money. But 2 and 3 is what surprised me. I knew it made money, but I didn't realize it made this much money. Number 2 highest grossing R-rated movie, Deadpool 2, $785.8 million. Deadpool, the first one, $782.6 million. So to me, those numbers are so close that it's pretty much like everyone that saw Deadpool 1 in theaters went back and saw Deadpool 2 in theaters, and just a little bit more. You know, like, so that's crazy numbers to me. But neither of those are 3-hour movies. Oppenheimer's coming in at 4 with $777.2 million grossed for an R-rated movie. And I think that number's even low, because I just heard recently that movie might pass $950 million at the box office. For a 3-hour movie, that's insane. But that movie is tremendous. And then number 5 is Matrix Reloaded, $741.8 million. I didn't even realize that Matrix Reloaded wasn't a rated R movie. Was the first Matrix rated R? I didn't even realize Oppenheimer was rated R, but obviously, you know, there's nude scenes and stuff with Florence Pugh, so that's probably where it is the rated R, because it's not really like gory or anything like that. And I don't really remember too much like F-bombs or anything. Maybe there was, I don't know. That was a long movie, and I kind of, you know, just absorbed it all at once, and I haven't seen it since, so I'm actually kind of excited for that one to come out at home, and I can take my time and watch it again. But I don't know, maybe once was enough. But getting into Ahsoka here. Ahsoka, episode 3, Time to Fly. And this episode is about 30 minutes long, so it's a shorter episode, but it has some great stuff in there. Starts out with Ahsoka's training Sabine, and she's trying her best, you know, but it's so interesting because her character, if you know her from Rebels and you know her from, you know, that TV show, her character is very complicated. She's a Mandalorian, but she's also not necessarily like a bounty hunter, kind of like Mando. She's like this scientist, like, that made technology, and the technology was used against her people, and so she's conflicted. But she's also a Mandalorian, so she's bullheaded and stubborn, but she's a good fighter because she's a Mandalorian. So any weapon she can kind of wield and do her thing, and she can hold her own in a fight. But she's not necessarily Force sensitive. But the Force lives in all living things, so she, I believe, can become Force sensitive. But as Hu Yang said in this show, she is the worst Jedi candidate he's ever seen, and he's seen a lot of goddamn Jedi candidates over the year. So she's by far the worst at the very, very bottom. So she's going to have the most to overcome her journey and become Force sensitive. I think she can do it. You know, maybe she won't be able to do it. That would be, you know, a little bit sad for her. But I gotta say, Natalie Lou Bordizzo, she does look goddamn good when in this training scene. But, you know, Ahsoka kind of is teaching her, you know, slowly but surely, and she's got to embrace her training. But I love, you know, just how it starts, and it's just like this, you know, nice little beat as they go, and she's like just keeps tapping her with this wooden stick, you know, like, it's just so good. But then the title comes in, you see Time to Fly, which honestly might just be because this has a great air battle in this episode. But we also cut back to Hera talking to the senators and Chancellor Mon Mothma, and and Mon Mothma goes, "Hera, how are you? Where's Jason?" Jason Syndulla, we know from the very, very end of Rebels, one of the last episodes, you see Hera flying with Jason with the green hair here, and I was like, why does he have green hair? Probably because he's half Kanan, right? So he's half human, half what is it, Twi'lek is Hera's race of being. So he's not green skinned, but he has green hair. Maybe that's how they justify it. But he is in the show. I couldn't believe they actually showed Jason, and he's the cutest little kid. He's next to Chopper here, and he has green hair. But a little detail I noticed was on his shoulder here, he has just a tiny little pommel on his shoulder with the same insignia that Kanan used to wear on his shoulder. So that's just, I'm like, oh, and what does the kid say? He goes, I want to be a Jedi. Oh, you know, you're going to be a Jedi one day, kid, just like your papa. Oh, Kanan. Makes you so sad. Like, if you know what happens in Rebels, Kanan won't be in this show. I don't think, you know, maybe a flashback or something. I would love to see Freddie Prinze Jr. play live-action Kanan. Kanan is one of the best characters in Rebels, so, like, I really would love to see him in this show, but here's what it is. You're not really going to see that. But then Sabine thinks she can't feel the Force, right? She's just like, I don't feel it the way you do. And Ahsoka's like, listen, it resides in all living things. She does this little force pull of the T over to her. And I thought it was funny. Like, she walks away and Sabine's like all of us with the TV remote when it's too far away. Just and then she gets the Sabine. We have Hera come up to the front, and she like looks at the cup and goes, "You win this time." So cup 1, Sabine 0. So this next part to me is super interesting. Hu Yang, David Tennant is the voice of Hu Yang, and he's doing a great job voicing that droid because he says some really funny lines, just the delivery of it. But Hu Yang says something really interesting to her, right? Talking about how Sabine isn't going to be the best Jedi candidate, and Hu Yang wasn't supposed to tell her that she's the worst Jedi candidate ever in the history of Jedi. You know, that's just going to discourage her even more. And so Ahsoka's like, why would you tell her that? And he's like, I told her the truth. I'm a truthful person. I told her the truth, you know? And she's like, I don't want her to be just like a Jedi. I want her to be herself. And he goes, well, that's very interesting, because I suppose you do come from a long line of non-traditional Jedi. And then you think about it and you go, non-traditional Jedi? Oh yeah, I guess so. Her lineage of Jedi goes Yoda, the only real one other than like Yaddle, but the only one of his species that is a Jedi that we've seen. And then we have Count Dooku, very unique man. Count Dooku was then Qui-Gon, very unique guy himself, was his master. Then Qui-Gon was Obi-Wan's master. Obi-Wan was also very unique Jedi himself. Then you go, Obi-Wan is Anakin's master, and then you go, Anakin is Ahsoka's master, right? So very, very unique line of Jedi. And then still from there, Sabine now is, right, Ahsoka's apprentice, but Sabine was also Kanan Jarrus's apprentice, which is Caleb Dune. He was a young Padawan himself in the Clone Wars, and he escaped, and then took on the name Kanan Jarrus, right? So it's a very interesting lineage of Jedi here that Sabine is kind of the culmination of. Like, even if Sabine becomes a Jedi and becomes older, and then we maybe see her later, like way later, when when Rey's stuff and the Rise of Skywalker happens, I would love to see what is she going to be, the master for Jason? That's it's still continuing this very interesting line of Jedi, but there's some stuff in this that are just so interesting, man, really. But then they're approaching the Denab system. They jump out of hyperspace, and they have this great starfighter battle with Shin Hati here leading the strike. Shin was in one plane, and Merrick, I was like, we're not going to kill off Merrick here. We're not going to figure out who he is. Of course, they kill every other fighter plane that had a bunch of no-name people in it, and Shin and Merrick are the only ones that are left standing. But there was like 5 or 6 planes, you know, and they're in 2 of them, so she took out the other 4. But they were struggling at first, and then it's Ahsoka and Sabine have to learn to work together. And then Hu Yang is like, can we keep getting closer to this ring? I want to run my scan. And they're like, come on, Hu Yang, what the fuck is taking so long? Finally, they get closer and closer and closer. Finally, they get close enough. He goes, scan complete. And then, boom, they get hit and he shuts down. And it's like, oh, god damn it, Hu Yang, what are you doing to us? So the ship takes some damage because she's hit from, you know, cannons from Morgan Elsbeth's ship, or ring, hyperspace ring. It's kind of a vessel, they say. But this hyperspace ring is very interesting stuff. We'll get into that in a second. So Morgan Elsbeth shoots down the ship, and now it's like, you know, kind of just dead floating in space. But now they're out of range, so she doesn't know if it's exploded or what happened. So now Shin and Merrick have to come back in and finish off the job. And I think there's 1 or 2 planes left there. But some great action here, and some stuff I don't think we've really seen. Ahsoka, while Sabine has to fix the ship, because from Rebels she is a technological person. She's very smart when it comes to fixing things and figuring things out, like we saw in episode 1 or 2, where she has to figure out the puzzle thing, and she's the only one that can figure it out. She's an artiste. Sabine's character is so interesting. But Ahsoka here has to put on a spacesuit over her little tentacle things, and she goes out on the side of the wing, out in space, and has to fight off these planes, and she does a pretty badass job. She's deflecting blaster bolts, and then does this flip and slices off a fucking wing and kills one of the planes, just like, it reminded me of Rey, you know, when she has to jump over Kylo and splits the plane in half. But out in space instead of on the ground. And then, you know, so she slices one of the planes, it blows up. Sabine looks out the window, oh my god, Ahsoka, are you okay? Thinking she died. And then you look over and Ahsoka's floating in space. Sabine, did you fix the ship? And she's like, oh. She fixes the ship and she goes, I think I got it. Okay, now get me. You know, like, has to turn the wing. It's such a good design too. Like, as things are happening, she fixes the ship, she turns the wings so the wings rotate, and it rotates, catches, you know, Ahsoka floating in midair. She has to run down the wing, so missing blaster bolts, flips back into the ship. She goes, go! She starts blasting off into the planet down below, and what do we see? Back from Rebels, live, but now in live action, we see fucking Purrgil, and oh my god, are they massive. So freaking big, so freaking cool. I love these space whales. They just look majestic, but they're also, if you know, they're badass and they're friendly, especially to people that are friendly to them, like Ezra. And they can do hyperspace with their tails. They come down from Rebels, we know this. They go and feed on gas in a planet, and almost like fuel. They feed on the gas, then they go back up into hyperspace. They activate their little tentacle tails, and they start glowing blue, and then they go poof, and they launch into hyperspace, or launch great distances in hyperspace. We saw this in Mandalorian Season 3, Baby Grogu, as they were traveling in hyperspace, looks out the window, and we see shadows of Purrgil flying through there. So like they were like teasing these Purrgils for a long time. Now we finally see them, and they are massive, but super cool. But now, so Ahsoka and Sabine fly down to the planet, and they have to, you know, kind of piece and get out of there so they don't just keep getting attacked. The ship's not fully repaired, just kind of operational again. So they land on the planet in the woods. They're hiding. They shut off all the power, shut off Hu Yang, so that there's nothing to be traced. Shin Hati and Merrick fly overhead in peace, and they're sitting there like, okay, we're safe. They power back up Hu Yang. He tells them about the hyperspace ring, and the hyperspace ring is, he goes, it is designed so they can go great distances at great speeds, possibly between galaxies. The Jedi Archive, right, so that's from long time ago. The Jedi Archive speaks of intergalactic hyperspeed lanes that they would follow paths of star whales known as Purrgil, right? So they explain what the hell those whales just were, even if you didn't watch Rebels. So now you know that they're called Purrgils. You know that they travel in hyperspeed lanes, right? So it's super interesting. And then they both kind of go and look at each other like, oh, they're going to different galaxies. And what do we have to do? We have to follow the Purrgil, right? So it's very interesting. I don't know how Ahsoka's ship will get there unless they board that ring somehow and then go there. But I believe we're going to go to another galaxy in this series, and we're going to see this bad boy, Admiral Thrawn, plays by something. I think it's Lars Mikkelsen. Either way, he's the same guy that voiced him in Rebels. Obviously an older man, but it's supposed to be years from now. We'll talk about the timeline in just 1 second. But I like that it's the same guy, the red eyes, the blue skin, and Thrawn was, you know, a very formidable opponent in Rebels. The only reason he really lost was because the people in his ranks didn't listen to him, you know what I mean? So he's a very formidable opponent. But I love that Bendu in the Rebels show, you shall lose, you shall be defeated, not die, you shall be defeated like a cold embrace of 1,000 arms, and he gets wrapped up by tentacles and then gets blasted off, right? So 1,000 little arms, you know, like tentacles grabbing him. Yeah, so that show ends amazing. I can't recommend that show enough, but this episode ends with Ray Stevenson, Balin Skull sends a group of droids, bounty hunters, whatever, forces into the woods after them, and then he kind of just has this solemn, like, she's here, I'm going to have to kill her, right? So this first 3 episodes felt very Act 1, so I believe next week and the following week we're going to get into Act 2, and we're going to get into some really juicy stuff in furthering the story. I think maybe even Ahsoka and Rey will have that battle that we've seen where he's just got his lightsaber out and they're in that like ring that we saw Morgan Elsmith light up in the first episode or second episode. But that's the end of the episode there. So next week we got Ahsoka in the woods, we got people coming after him, we got Baylan Skoll on the planet, we got the ring up in space almost ready to go. So we got things happening. We got Pargle up in the air. So who knows what will happen. We got Sabine and Ahsoka kind of working together. But this show, man, if you're not liking it, I don't know. Please comment below what you don't like about it. Maybe you don't follow Star Wars as heavily, and you haven't seen the animated shows, but I highly recommend it, man. A couple other things that I noticed in this show, on Hera here, she's got this belt thigh holster holding a blaster, and in Rebels I noticed she didn't have this, and it's familiar. I was like, where did I notice that thigh holster from? And I believe this is Kanan's thigh holster. So she's got her Kanan's. The last thing she has from him is Kanan's thigh holster and her son Jason. So I hope we get more about that. I hope we talk about Kanan more, maybe even a flashback. Kanan's the man, like Kanan was such a good guy. He went blind, was fighting blind, but learned how to see from Bendu. I'm the one in the middle. I hope we see Bendu. Bendu was the man too. God, Rebels has some of the best stuff in Star Wars. They just expanded what the Force and everything was, and I can't recommend it enough. I've honestly been having a great time going back and rewatching it for a second time, and especially in companion with watching Ahsoka. But I'm almost done with Rebels Season 4, and then, we still got, 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks left of Ahsoka. I'm super excited about that. And then we got Loki coming up. So I got Marvel stuff coming up. I got to watch Ant-Man next. I got to watch Deadpool, and then Captain America Civil War. And then I still got to watch Blade 2, 3, Daredevil, Elektra. I'm getting to those, don't worry. I just heard, I bought these goddamn DVDs, but I just heard recently that Blade, the trilogy, is going on to Max soon. So I'm like, God damn it, I could have waited. But I got a good deal on it, so whatever. Helped out the comic book store. But real quick before we end here, I want to talk, I saw this post recently, and Star Wars released an official timeline that is super helpful, right? So they have it broken down into 9 different eras. The first one is the Dawn of the Jedi, and they have no description for this, right? So the Dawn of the Jedi is hopefully maybe what James Mangold's movie is going to be about. From the most recent announcement of movies, right? We're going to have a Dave Filoni movie that's going to culminate Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, that era. And then we're going to have James Mangold, which I think is going to be the Dawn of the Jedi, or at least the Old Republic, early stages, like how the first Jedi came to be, which is super interesting to me. Then there's also going to be a movie way later in this new Jedi Order era, which is going to be Rey starting a new Jedi thing going on, which is way later. But in order we go Dawn of the Jedi, then there's the Old Republic, which is probably Knights of the Old Republic, that old game that I really need to play. Then they go the High Republic, which they then start throwing in titles that are set during this time. The High Republic era says that the little kid show, the Young Jedi Adventures, are set in the High Republic. So now I might even have to go watch that to understand what the High Republic era is. Because other than that, it says Star Wars, the High Republic. I've never heard of that. So comment below where I can find that and see what the High Republic's like. Because that's like the earliest that we've seen. Then there's the Fall of the Jedi, which is Tales of the Jedi, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith is all grouped in the Fall of the Jedi, which is obviously the prequels. Then Reign of the Empire, which is Bad Batch, Jedi Fallen Order, which I find interesting. They throw in Cal. And I also find interesting that Solo's in here, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Survivor, so both of those Jedi games with Cal Kestis, Andor, Rebels, Rogue One, and this last one is called Vader Immortal. I've never heard of that. What is that? Comment below if you know what that is. Then the next set of titles is the Age of Rebellion, right? So the Rebels, the Rebellion, is the original trilogy. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. They also group in Battlefront 2 in Squadrons, which I find interesting. I've never played Squadrons, so I don't know the story behind that game. Battlefront 2 kind of jumps around. You can play in each of the Rebellion, the Empire, and what is it? The Fall of the Jedi era, right? So you play in all three of them. Then the next one is the current timeline we're sitting in with Ahsoka, the New Republic, right? So this is after Return of the Jedi, but before Rey's First Order stuff. And that is Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and Ahsoka are all set there. Then we have the Rise of the First Order, which is Star Wars Resistance, which I believe is an animated TV show. Maybe I'll have to check that out. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. What is this one? I'm not sure. It just says Star Wars, and it has something written underneath it. Maybe I'll have to look up what that is. And then the last one is The Rise of the Skywalker. So then, also not listed is the last years of stuff is called the New Jedi Order, which is what I said will be Rey's stuff at the end. So comment below, which of these are you most excited for? I think the Dawn of the Jedi is what I'm excited for. I would love to see early days and how the Jedi became so powerful, you know what I'm saying? But I'm also kind of excited for some reason to see Rey's new Jedi Order, you know, what's happened after all of this stuff. But I think I'm most excited to see Ahsoka and what's going on right now, because this is an interesting era. They're going to a different galaxy. They're fighting Thrawn. He's a very good opponent. It's not Emperor Palpatine, which I enjoy. You know, I feel like we've gotten a lot of Emperor Palpatine, and he's a good villain, but he's not the only villain. Like, come on, we can get more creative. Admiral Thrawn, he's gonna be the guy. I'm telling you, this series I'm so excited for. First 3 episodes have been great. If you like my t-shirt, hit up those guys at nerdriot.shop. That is not a sponsored message, but Nerd Riot, if you're watching this and you like that I keep wearing your shirts, I'm a cheap date. Fucking send me a shirt and I'll fucking shout you guys out forever. If not, I'm gonna keep buying them because I enjoy having nerdy shit that I can wear for these videos, but I also like wearing my nerdy shit out in public. And, you know, like, this doesn't just say, like, Ahsoka on it, right? So you can walk around with this shirt, and some people will just be like, hey, nice shirt, that don't even know what it is. But for the people that do know what it is, they walk by and go, hey, you've been watching Ahsoka? That's a good-ass show. And I like that, you know? I like that the shirts aren't necessarily just plastered, this is what I like, Star Wars, you know? Like, they have a bunch of different designs. So go check out their shit, because I really like their shirts. But I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll be talking next week about Ahsoka Episode 4, and next Monday we're going to be talking about the news from the week and the weekend. I'm still healing up from mouth surgery, but I'm doing much better, and I hope all of you guys are doing well too, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.